They said it was a family dinner. That's how my mother put it when she called. Just come over Sunday, sweetheart. I'm making your favorite, the pot roast. And like an idiot, I believed her. I drove 40 minutes in traffic, brought a bottle of wine, even stopped to pick up flowers because I thought maybe things are finally settling down. Maybe we're okay. We were not okay. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because if I just tell you what happened that Sunday, you won't understand why it broke me the way it did. You need to know what came before. You need to know who I was before I walked through that door, and who I became after I walked out of it. I'm the oldest of 3. My brother is 2 years younger than me, and my sister is 5 years younger. I'm 31 now. I've been working since I was 16, hostessing at a restaurant, then waitressing through college, then clawing my way into a marketing coordinator role at 22 that paid just enough to feel like I was building something real. My parents immigrated from the Philippines when I was 4. They worked incredibly hard. My father in warehouse logistics, my mother in home health care. I watched them sacrifice. I absorbed it. I told myself that one day, when they needed me, I would be there. No questions. No hesitation. And I was. It started small, the way these things always do. My father's car needed a repair, $800, I covered it. My mother's hours got cut for 3 months. I sent $400 a month without being asked. When my brother, who I'll call my brother because that's what he is, dropped out of community college and moved back home at 24, I started helping cover the extra grocery bills because my parents mentioned, almost offhandedly, that things were tight. I told myself it was temporary. It was never temporary. By the time I was 28, I was sending home $600 every month, like clockwork. I had set up an automatic transfer, 6th of the month, every month. My parents never mentioned it. They never said thank you, not in a formal way. It was just expected, absorbed into the household like I was a utility bill they'd budgeted for. I told myself that was okay. That's what family does. Meanwhile, my brother was 26, living at home, working part-time at a grocery store, and spending his money on a gaming setup I couldn't have afforded. My sister, who I'll call my sister, was in college. The college I had partly funded by helping my parents with their bills so they could redirect what little they saved toward her tuition. I don't say that bitterly. I wanted her to go. I wanted her to go whole. I wanted her to have more than I did, but here is what I want you to understand. I never once asked for anything back. I didn't keep a ledger. I didn't send invoices. I just gave and gave and gave because I thought that was love. I thought that was what being the eldest daughter meant. The first crack appeared about 2 years ago. My apartment lease ended and my landlord raised the rent by $400. It pushed me into a place where I genuinely could not keep sending $600 home and also afford groceries and my student loan payment. I called my mother and explained the situation. I told her I needed to drop to $300 for a few months while I figured things out. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Your brother doesn't make enough to help, and your sister is still in school." That was all she said. Not okay. Not we understand. Just a reminder that no one else was contributing, as if that were my problem to solve. I dropped to $300. I felt guilty about it for weeks. I picked up freelance work on evenings and weekends to make up the difference so I could get back to $600 as soon as possible. I told myself it was fine. I told my therapist it was fine. She looked at me in that way therapists do, patient, steady, unconvinced. And she said, "Who takes care of you, though?" I didn't have an answer. The Sunday of the dinner, I pulled into my parents' driveway at 4 in the afternoon. My brother's truck was there. My sister was home from college for the weekend. I could see her car. There was another vehicle I didn't recognize, a newer model sedan, silver. I didn't think much of it, maybe a neighbor. My mother met me at the door. She hugged me. She smelled like pot roast and something floral. She took the flowers I brought and said they were beautiful. Everything felt normal. Everything felt warm. We sat down at the table. My father said grace. My brother was on his phone under the table. I saw his eyes looking down, his thumb moving. My sister was talking about a project she had coming up, something about environmental policy. I was listening, asking questions, genuinely happy to be there. Then my father set down his fork. He looked at my mother. She looked at him. Something passed between them that I couldn't read. "We wanted to talk to you about something," my father said. "About the house." I thought it was a maintenance issue. Maybe the roof. Maybe they needed help with a repair. "We've been thinking a lot," my mother said. "About the future. About what happens when we're gone." I felt something shift in my stomach. Not panic yet. Just a change in air pressure. "We updated our will," my father said. "We worked with an estate attorney a few months ago." A few months ago? They hadn't told me. I noted that. "We decided," my mother said, choosing her words carefully, "that the house will go to your brother and sister equally. The property has appreciated quite a bit. It's worth more than we realized." I put my fork down. I heard myself ask, "And what does that mean for me?" My mother said, "We know you've always been independent. You have your career. You've never needed us the way they have." I need you to sit with that sentence for a moment. I have never needed them. I have wired over $30,000 into their bank account over the past 6 years. I skipped vacations. I delayed getting my car fixed for 8 months because I prioritized that transfer on the 6th of the month. I canceled my gym membership. I stopped seeing my therapist for a year because I couldn't justify the copay. I did all of that quietly, without complaint, without asking for credit. And the conclusion they reached, after all of that, was that I didn't need them. The room was very quiet. My brother was looking at the table. He knew. He had known before I walked in. I could tell by the way he couldn't look at me. My sister's face was complicated, something between guilt and relief. And I understood in that moment that she had known too. I had been the last to know. At my own family dinner. The one I brought flowers to. "I need a minute," I said. I went to the bathroom. I ran cold water over my wrists. I looked at myself in the mirror above the sink, the one I had looked into 100 times growing up, fixing my hair before school, brushing my teeth, crying quietly so no one would hear. I thought about the $600 transfers, the freelance nights, the therapist I stopped seeing, the vacation I didn't take. I thought about my mother's face when she said I'd always been independent. She said it like it was a compliment. She said it like he was proud of me. And I realized she was. She genuinely was. She thought she was giving me the highest form of praise. She had mistaken my sacrifice for self-sufficiency. She had looked at everything I gave and concluded that I didn't need anything back because I never asked. I had taught them over 6 years that I didn't have needs. I walked back out to the table. My father started to explain the reasoning in more detail. The attorney, the tax implications, the way the property would be split. My mother jumped in to say that of course I was still in the will for some personal items, jewelry, the china set she'd brought from the Philippines. The china set. I'm 31 years old with over $30,000 sent to this house, and I was being offered the china set. "I'm not going to sit here and pretend this is okay," I said. My voice came out quieter than I expected, not shaking, just flat. Everyone stopped. "I'm not asking for an apology," I said. "I'm not asking for an apology," I said. "I'm not asking you to change anything tonight. But I need you to hear me." My mother opened her mouth. I held up my hand, gently, not dramatically, and she stopped. "For 6 years," I said, "I have sent money home every single month. I have made choices, real choices that cost me, to make sure this family was okay. I am not saying that because I want credit. I'm saying it because I think you genuinely don't know. I think you looked at the fact that I never complained and decided that meant it never cost me anything." My father's jaw was tight. He's not a man who takes correction easily. "I love you both," I said. "I love my brother and my sister, and I am not a villain in this story just because I'm telling the truth." My sister said quietly, "Nobody said you were." "Nobody had to," I said. I picked up my bag. I thanked my mother for the pot roast, which I had barely touched. I said I needed some time, and then I walked out. I sat in my car in the driveway for probably 4 minutes. I could see the light in the dining room window. No one came after me. I drove home. The days after were strange. Not dramatic, the way you might expect. No screaming phone calls, no emergency texts. My mother sent a message the next day that said, "Hope you got home safe. Dinner is in the fridge if you want to come get some." I stared at that message for a long time. I responded that I was okay and that I needed some space. My brother texted 2 days later. He said he was sorry I found out that way. He said he'd tried to tell my parents to give me more time to prepare, but they'd wanted to do it in person, together, as a family. I didn't respond right away. I appreciated that he texted. I also noticed that he didn't say it was wrong. He said he was sorry about the delivery, not the decision. There's a difference. My sister called the following week. She was crying before I even said hello. She said she hadn't known how to bring it up. She said she told my parents it wasn't fair. She said she was going to talk to them again, that she didn't feel right about it. I believed her. I also knew that nothing would change. Here is what I have learned in the months since that Sunday. You cannot donate your way into being valued. I thought if I gave enough money, time, energy, availability, that my family would see me, that they would understand on some cellular level what I was doing and what it cost me. But generosity that isn't named is generosity that disappears. To them, the money was just there, like running water. You don't think about where water comes from, you just turn the faucet. I had made myself a faucet. The hard part, the part I sat with my therapist on once I went back to seeing her, was that no one in my family is a monster. My parents aren't evil. They didn't sit down and calculate how to squeeze the most out of their eldest daughter. They just followed a pattern that I enabled. Every time I didn't speak up, I confirmed to them that there was nothing to speak about. Every month the transfer went through, I told them the system was working. I had been speaking a language of sacrifice they had never learned to read. My mother grew up in a household where the eldest child provided. That was the structure she inherited, and the structure she passed on without examining it, without realizing that the world my generation was navigating looked nothing like hers. She didn't understand that I was paying rent in a city where a studio costs $1,700, carrying student debt, and operating without a safety net while also being her safety net. She understood none of that because I never showed her. That's on me. Partially. I own that part. What isn't on me is what I did with that realization. I stopped the transfers. Not in a dramatic announcement. I just didn't set up the next one. The 6th of the month came and went. No one called to ask about it for almost 3 weeks. That alone told me everything I needed to know. When my mother did ask, I told her calmly that I was reassessing my finances and I wasn't sure what I could contribute going forward. She said she understood. She sounded careful, like she was choosing words around something fragile. She asked if I was angry. I thought about it honestly before I answered. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just different now." She didn't know what to do with that. Honestly, neither did I. But it felt true. It has been 6 months. I have not sent any money home. I have been to 2 family dinners, one at Thanksgiving, one in February for my father's birthday. Both were civil. Both were quiet in the way that rooms are quiet when people are being careful with each other. My brother got a second job. My father picked up extra weekend shifts. The faucet turned off and they figured it out. I don't say that with satisfaction. I genuinely don't. I say it because it's just true, and I needed to see it to stop feeling like everything would collapse without me. Nothing collapsed. Life rearranged around the space I'd left. I am still working through what I want my relationships with my family to look like. I don't think cutting them off is my answer. That's a choice I respect in other people, but it's not where I am. I love them. I am choosing to love them in a way that doesn't hollow me out. My therapist has this phrase she uses: you can love someone and still protect yourself from the dynamic. I've written that in my phone notes. I read it sometimes when I need to. What I want you to take from this, if you're sitting here watching this because something in the title felt familiar, because you've been the one who shows up and pays and stays quiet and tells yourself it's fine, is this: you are not strong because you don't have needs. You are not noble because you don't complain. You are not a better person because you've learned to disappear your own pain so well that even the people who love you have forgotten it exists. You taught them that you were fine. Maybe it's time to stop teaching that. I didn't come back to that dinner table to beg for a different outcome. I went back because I was hungry and the pot roast smelled good. And I love my father's awkward attempts at jokes and my sister's face when she talks about things she cares about. I went back because those people are my family and I am choosing to show up, just differently than before. But I put my name on the list now. I go to therapy. I kept the $600. I booked a trip to Portugal that I've been putting off for 4 years. I sleep better than I have in a long time, which surprised me because I thought carrying my family was keeping me safe. It wasn't keeping me safe. It was keeping me busy. There's a difference. And if you've ever been the one who kept the lights on while everyone else slept, I see you. I know how tired that gets. I know how much you've convinced yourself you don't mind. You can put it down. I promise the ceiling won't fall. I've thought a lot about cause and effect since that Sunday. Not in the cosmic way. I don't think the universe was punishing anyone or rewarding me for being patient. It's simpler and harder than that. What I've come to understand is that systems don't change until there's pressure. And for 6 years, I removed all the pressure by absorbing it myself. Every month that transfer went through on the 6th. I was telling my family, this is fine, we are fine, nothing needs to change. I thought I was being good. I thought I was being good. I thought I was being responsible. What I was actually doing was building a structure that no one else had any reason to examine because it worked. For them. My mother is not a cruel woman. My father is not selfish in the way villains are selfish. They are people who took what was offered and didn't ask questions because that's what people do. I am not exempt from that either. I do it too. We all do. The question I had to sit with, the one that took me months to be honest about, was why I kept offering. What did I think I was buying? I think I believed that if I gave enough, I would become someone they couldn't overlook. That the deposits would accumulate into something that wasn't money, into visibility, into being truly seen. And when my father looked me in the eye over a pot roast dinner and told me the house was going to my brother and my sister, what shattered wasn't my finances. It was that theory. The one I'd been quietly running for 6 years. The thing about intelligence, real intelligence, not test scores or career titles, is that it eventually demands honesty. And the honest truth was that I'd been running an experiment that I already had enough data to call. The data said, this dynamic will not change unless you change your role in it. I had that data by year 2. I kept going until year 6. That's not weakness. It's very human. We hold on to strategies that feel like love even when they stop working because admitting they've stopped working means admitting the loss. And the loss I was protecting myself from was the idea that my family might not love me the way I needed. That there might simply be a gap between what they were capable of giving and what I had been hoping for. Sitting with that gap, without filling it with transfers and pot roast dinners and flowers, I stopped to pick up on the way. That took more courage than any of the giving did. What I want to say to anyone who recognizes themselves in this story is something I wish someone had said to me around year 3. You cannot be disciplined or generous enough to close a gap that the other person doesn't know exists. You can only decide whether you're willing to live alongside it, or whether you need to name it first. Naming it doesn't guarantee anything. My parents didn't have a sudden awakening. My brother didn't give back his half of the house. Nothing was reversed. But I am different now. Quieter in some ways, louder in others. I stopped performing self-sufficiency and started actually building it. I went back to therapy. I booked the trip. I sleep well. The ceiling didn't fall when I put it down. That's the whole lesson. That's all there is.